My name is Mike Andes. I'm the co-founder and CEO of CopilotCRM.com. I'm also the founder of Augusta Lawn Care. We have over 120 locations around North America. And today I'm going to be talking to you about the best CRM, customer relationship management tool for your lawn care, landscaping, and any home service-based business. I'm going to go through the top 5 and explain the pros, the cons. I'm also going to talk about how much you're going to be paying for it. Also looking at the payment processing, because that's actually the hidden cost of most of these softwares. It's not the monthly fee. And then what the ideal use case for every one of these softwares is going to be. And if you're starting out, I am biased. I am 100% biased because I'm the co-founder of Copilot. I'm the CEO. However, you might be shocked by the fact that I'm not going to recommend Copilot for everyone. I think that these other software systems have a user that is better fit for their needs compared to Copilot. I'm going to explain which ones I think should and should not use Copilot, and who should actually use these other softwares instead of Copilot, which I am affiliated with. I'm going to be comparing all of these, and in terms of prices and features and things like that, I'm going to be comparing the top tier of their features and their top tier of what options they have. The reason for that is because when you start to grow a business, the amount that you spend on CRM is so minuscule compared to what it can save you if it has the right feature set, it has the right user interface. It's incredible. If you have $1 million business, you could easily save $50,000 or $100,000 a year simply by having a couple good features. So having an extra $50 or $60 per month is not going to be a deciding factor. I am going to go over price, but just keep in mind I'm comparing the best features and the best tier, you might say, or package that these softwares offer. All right, I'm not going to compare every single tier because most of them have 3 to 4 different tiers. All right, I got some notes. I want to be prepared, make sure I got everything nailed down. Just keep in mind, I have tried out dozens of software packages. These are the most popular ones, and down the road, I'll be adding in more one-off software systems that are maybe a little more niche to the industries and specific types of use cases, but I'll compare and contrast those and the pros and cons of each of those as well. But these are some of the most popular in the lawn care, landscaping, and home service industries. So just remember, these are my opinions. I am biased. You definitely want to do more research and talk to other users. In my opinion, the best feedback is from other users of this software, not the companies themselves. So just remember, I am biased, and I do own a piece of Copilot as I go through all of this. But I have tried out dozens of software, including all of these, and I know exactly what is the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the whole reason I had to start Copilot is because I do feel there was a need in the market that was not being filled by these other players. So let's go ahead and jump into it. What I'm going to do is you got the little button here, the little color circle. As I move through the different features of the specific software, I will move this along until we finish over here where I am going to explain what user and what use case is best for the specific software. So let's start off with Jobber. All right, so some of the pros that I have with Jobber, some of the good things is very simple, great looking user interface, or UI. Very, very clean. It's easy to learn and adapt. So if you have using another software and you're migrating into Jobber, very simple. The user interface is very, very easy. They have some really good new integrations, and with about 15 to 20 different companies that they're working with right now, direct integrations, and a Zapier integration. Zapier allows you to connect with like 4,000 other apps using that specific Zapier integration. So that's fantastic. Very simple way of using SMS texting. And I really like the way that they do the text messaging to and from the customer. Very simple. I've seen other software systems that their SMS texting is extremely complicated. It's hard to track. Jobber's really nailed it. And they have great chat support. When it comes to Jobber, their chat support, like in the bottom right-hand corner of the software, you can just like chat with someone. Very good live support. I also like their mobile app. It's very clean, very simple to use. And their client portal layout is just stellar, honestly. The way that they have invoicing and estimates for the client to see and the client portal, in my mind, one of the most simple ones and the most user-friendly ways of getting started when it comes to CRM is Jobber. All right, some of the cons is that they do lack some automation flexibility. When you start trying to create automations beyond just estimate follow-up and invoice follow-up, there's just not a lot of customization there. as well as their dispatch board is just not really built for large operations. So, for example, my very first Augusta Lawn Care location, there needs to be an ability to have 300, 400, 500 jobs on a dispatch board, and dozens of crews. And I feel like Jobber's just not set up for that. Their dispatch board isn't really set up for that larger operations, and some of their marketing functions are pretty limited unless you integrate also with MailChimp for email, for example. And the problem with that is I want to have all of my marketing and my CRM in one software package if possible, instead of having to go get a MailChimp subscription, which is going to cost you an additional $100, $150, depending on what type of number of clients you have. But for my business, I'd have to pay an additional on top of what I'm paying to Jobber for just MailChimp so I can do my email marketing. There's obviously a lot of benefit to having open source where you have a lot of integrations, but also I want one software to do a lot of the heavy lifting for me, and that includes my marketing, and Jobber does not have that right now. Now, when it comes to pricing at Jobber, we're looking at $349 per month. That includes 15 users, so very nice. If you have like 10 users, it's on average like $35 a user, not bad. But in addition to that $350, you're gonna have to pay for upgrades such as Company Cam, MailChimp, and these integrations might cost $50, $100+. So just keep in mind, you're not getting really all the features that you would in some of these other packages at the $349 price point, because there's integrations that are also need to be tacked on if you want to use their full benefits and their full feature set. So Company Cam, great integration, love it. The ability to take photos and videos and attach those to pieces of the estimate, etc. But that's a paid additional feature that you'll have to get a subscription with the other company. All right, payment processing, 2.7 to 3.1%, depending on what type of credit card and depending on what type of layer and tier you're in of their customer base. You're gonna get 1% a fee for ACH, right? So you got credit card processing, and then you have ACH, it stands for Automated Clearinghouse. It's for basically when you get the routing number and the bank account number from the customer, a lot cheaper, only 1% ACH. However, they don't allow for auto payments, from what I've heard, because this is a recent thing. From what I've heard, they do not allow auto payments on ACH. The reason companies do this is because they want you to use the credit card processing because they make more money. So I don't like the fact that they don't allow auto pay on ACH, and they don't have a cap on that 1%. So if you have a $10,000 bill, you're going to pay 1% of that, which is $100. A lot of these other companies, when it comes to ACH, they have a cap on what ACH is per transaction. All right. Ideal user, in my opinion, is anyone that is from $100,000 in annual revenue to $500,000 in annual revenue. So again, they don't really have the flexibility for those massive companies, but they are going to be have some good features in here in terms of users that are still small and above 100,000 revenue. All right. I wouldn't recommend a Jobber if you're doing under 100,000. You don't need it. But if I would recommend it for people that have most of their revenue, that 100,000 to 500,000, is coming from recurring jobs as well as projects that are under $10,000. They don't have the most robust project management tools. They're really built for smaller jobs and recurring jobs. And so if you're doing $50,000, $100,000, $200,000 landscape installs and ponds and pools, probably not the best solution for you, in my opinion. All right. Let's move on to Service Autopilot. Now, I've used Service Autopilot the most out of all these software systems because we have built Augusta Nation to over 100 locations, mostly on Service Autopilot. We've used some other softwares as well, but the vast majority of our locations in the past ran on Service Autopilot. So some of the pros. Number one, very powerful enterprise level features for automations. Potentially some of their best work was done a few years ago when they instituted some very robust features around automations. Great for the enterprise level, larger companies doing 3, 4, 5, 10 million, fantastic features for them. In addition to automations for those enterprise level users, they also have job costing and great price matrices. Again, something that's not visible in something like Jobber, but it is great for that enterprise level user that is doing hundreds of estimates a day, thousands of recurring jobs a day. Their dispatch board is fantastic, and in my mind, one of the best dispatch boards out there for recurring work and for large volumes of recurring work. All right, so this is, again, enterprise level users is where the game is at for Service Autopilot because of their automations, their price matrices, and their job costing. All right, now let's talk about some of the cons. So cons for Service Autopilot, very long learning curve. We had to train our franchisees for months many times to get them up to speed and learning how Service Autopilot can be used. It's very complicated to learn and it's very hard to implement. In fact, a lot of times they upsell you into a setup. So the thing I don't mention a lot here is the fact that they're actually trying to sell you on a package just to get your software set up for you, and then on a recurring basis try to sell you on a monthly $50 or $100 extra just to get your email account set, your email document set up, and your estimate formatting and your invoice formatting. It's so complicated to implement, honestly. It's one of the worst things about it. Really, honestly, in my mind, one of the cons of Service Autopilot is that they have a slowing innovation. Ever since their co-founders were bought out and they've been part of a larger company that has venture capital behind them, innovation has slowed to a crawl. Also, their client portal, in my opinion, just very, very poor. Hopefully there's some updates down the road, but we've been hearing about those updates for 4 or 5 years now and haven't seen anything. They have very few integrations. They're much more of a closed system, kind of like Apple, compared to something like Java that has an open source and allows people to integrate and connect with Zapier and other apps. Last thing that the cons is really bad customer service. A lot of their users, that's their biggest complaint, is bad phone support. And then the way they do their ticketing system, that when you call in, the person on the other line just makes a ticket for you and then says that they'll call you back. And sometimes you wait days waiting for them to call you back. So definitely a big con. In terms of pricing, you're looking at $279 per month for their Pro Plus account, plus $19 per user. So keep that in mind. That's a big part of the cost, is that per user pricing, plus setup, because they're going to charge you for setting it up. Plus you're going to pay for upgrades such as Maps Pro, which allows you to do measuring of properties via satellite, etc. Plus, you're gonna have other upgrades for like Client Portal, $50 a month. If you want to do QuickBooks Sync, another $50 a month. Texting, more. Like there's just a lot of additional. So the $279 per month is definitely just the tip of the iceberg. Similar to Jobber, where there's other integration that you're going to need that are going to be on top of that monthly price. So it's a little bit deceiving there. But $279 is the actual price, plus $19 per user, plus setup, plus all those other pieces of features that you're going to need most likely. All right, in terms of payment processing, this is definitely a downside, and that is that you are locked into Clearant. Clearant is the company that owns Service Autopilot. Above them, it's Explore, then you have Clearant, then you have Service Autopilot. So they're a bit of in a big conglomerate, a bit of a subsidiary of them, and we'll talk more about this in a second, but honestly, being locked into one payment provider, not the best. And that's ultimately why so many of these payment processing companies buy out these CRMs, is because there's so much money in the payment processing, not so much in actually the monthly fees. So that's something why I made this extra whole column here just for the payment processing. It's very important to know that, because you're going to be paying typically 3.5% to 4%, depending on the size of your business, on processing through Clearant. And there's PCI compliance, and they're currently not ACH is not available to the majority of users. I think they're beta testing it, but it's been like that for like a year or two. It's just not widely used. It's not a great user experience, and they're avoiding ACH like most payment processors because they make more money on credit card processing. All right. The ideal user, in my opinion, for Service Autopilot is going to be someone that's doing $750,000 or $750,000 in revenue, and they're doing lawn care and mostly recurring work. All right. So if you're doing lawn care services and other recurring work, that's going to be your mojo if you're doing above $750,000 in revenue. If you're doing under that, it's too much of a pain to get implemented, in my opinion. You don't need the price matrices and the job costing and the really complex automations. You don't need that when you're doing $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 in revenue. All right. And if most of your projects are under $50,000, then it'll also work well for you. All right. So I say that because if you're doing design build and you're doing $3 million in revenue, but you're doing $250,000, $300,000 projects, it's not going to have the project management tools available that are substantial enough to handle those massive projects. So again, above $750,000 in revenue, mostly lawn care and recurring work. And if most of your projects are under $50,000, Service Autopilot, probably a good option for you. All right, Yardbook. All right, so the pros of this one is really simple, because that's what the pros are. It's extremely simple to use. It's very intuitive to get started. There's not a big learning curve. You literally can just open it up, and if you know how to like navigate PowerPoint and Microsoft Word, you probably can figure this out without a whole lot of pain. It's really built for mowing and simple recurring services only. If you're doing projects really of any sort, it's not that great. But when it comes to like the pros, if you're just doing mowing, some really basic property cleanup, some mulch installs, you're doing things on the side, getting started, this is a great, very simple, very intuitive to use. You literally can be up and running within a day and understand the majority of their features. All right, let's talk about some of the cons. Lacks features to grow into a larger company, such as automations, a dispatch board, in-depth reporting, automatically charging credit cards. These are things that just are not there. Also, just a lack of innovation and support, especially from a lot of the longtime users. They just feel like there's not a lot of new stuff happening. You can look at the design and the UI of the software and just realize it's probably caught back 5-10 years back, similar to service Autopilot in terms of their UI. There's not a lot of innovation happening, but they don't really need to because it's so simple, it's so basic. They're not focused on really what's coming. It's like, this is a basic CRM for you to be able to use and get started with estimating, invoicing, and doing some basic things like that for your job. Here's the beautiful thing about probably the best pro, honestly, with Yardbook. There's a free version that you can literally get started without paying a single dollar. It's awesome. And you can pay $35 a month for the premium version. The free version is supported by ads. And also, moving on to the payment processing side, if you have the premium version, the $35 per month, you're able to get a better discount when it comes to the Stripe fee that you're getting charged for payment processing. So 2.9% plus a 1% fee if you're not that premium $35 per month user, then you're getting an extra tack on for the payment processing. But basically 2.9% from Stripe is exactly what Stripe is charging them. So kudos to them. They're not making anything on the payment processing. They're really just charging you for that $35 per month. ACH, again, you're using bank transfers instead of credit card processing, not available inside of Yardbook. Again, if you're watching this in 6 months or 12 months or even 3 months from now, some of these features could have changed, things that can be added, but currently they do not have ACH available. All right. Ideal user, in my opinion, is from $0 to $100,000 in annual revenue for a company that's doing lawn care and simple services. No projects above 10,000, right? It doesn't have enough capabilities to do any sort of project management at all. All right. It's great for new owners that are starting out, or if you're doing this on the side, kind of a side hustle, a weekend, you're doing this after work, you're getting started. This is probably the best software for you to use because you can focus on growing the business and sales and getting the work done instead of like how to set up automations and price matrices and estimate email templates and all these other things. Just focus on doing the work. That's what the majority of your time should be spent on if you're doing under $100,000 in annual revenue, but you just cannot beat the price point for the fact that if you're just getting started, this is the software you want to use, and that is Yardbook. All right, so now we're going to talk about LMN, all right? The pros, what's good about LMN? It's very good for training skilled laborers. They acquired Greenius, which is a software that trains people via video and online. And so really great integrations between Greenius, who they acquired, and LMN to train your hardscapers, your landscapers, guys that need skill for building walls and doing large installations and patios and decks, pergolas, 3D designs. That's the type of user that's going to want LMN. Those are the pros. Great for those big projects, design build, project management, fantastic tools. I also really think that their budgeting and job costing is the best for any software. And what's really cool is you can use for free their budgeting software. Now, I personally think a lot of people using budgeting, they're bringing the wrong inputs in, and therefore the outputs that they get on the other side are flawed. However, it's still a great software when it comes to budgeting and integrating that with the job costing of your projects. Very important for jobs that you're doing hundreds of thousands of dollars of massive installations and 3, 4, 5 week projects that take a long time to get done and aren't just like recurring mowing visits. LMN crushes it. Not so great, I've heard, from the recurring side in terms of mowing and the dispatch board for recurring, but for projects, absolutely nails it. I also really think there's great leadership. One of the few companies on this list that I think their leadership is fantastic. And Mark Bradley, the CEO, very involved in the industry, been in the industry for a long time. I really like the leadership over at LMN. All right, let's move on to some of the cons of LMN. Most features based upon the majority of users I've talked to, do not use the vast majority of the features. There's just too much going on. There's a lot of complexity and depth because they're really trying to focus on those massive contracts, those massive projects in terms of design build. And so a lot of the smaller operators just feel like they're overwhelmed with the depth and layers of complexity and super in-depth features that 95% of people don't need or don't use. And so what that causes is confusion because you're looking at software where you're seeing so many options and things that you could do, and you're literally using a tip of the iceberg, which nothing against the software. It's just a matter, like there's very powerful features, but the fact is that a lot of smaller operators just feel completely lost and they're not using the features as much. It's expensive to get started, all right? Very expensive to get started. And not only is it to the cost like we talked about, but also just the setup fees, very expensive to get set up. Another con is it's not really robust for recurring work and automations. And a lot of people, again, have been complaining about their support in terms of phone support and other forms of support from the users. I've heard from multiple users that even recently that's still the case. All right, in terms of price, this is the most expensive one on this list. Just depends though. Service Autopilot could probably compete for that because of the amount of tag-ons and upsells that they give you. You could probably put Service Autopilot right up in this category, but the monthly price is the most for LMN. $394 per month, plus $19 per month per user, plus a $900 setup charge, okay? So again, it is substantially more than Service Autopilot, but Service Autopilot is gonna have other tag-on and upsell features that you really need. So they, $400 a month, no small amount of change there. In terms of payment processing, we got 2.95% for credit card processing, ACH, so they do accept bank transfers, at 1%, and what I really like is they have a cap at $10. So what that means, if you have a $100,000 project, you're only going to pay $10 for that ACH transfer. You're not paying the 1%. Really like that they did that. I think it's a fantastic move, seeing that the majority of their users are those big design build contracts and big jobs. There's big volume in terms of dollar amounts. ACH does not work like credit card processing. You don't need to charge a percentage from the back end, which I am familiar with. You do not need to charge the 1% into perpetuity. Having the cap of $10, very nice of them to do that. They also have what's called LMN Pay, and there's pros and cons. Again, like with Clearant, with Service Autopilot, they lock you into Clearant. Similarly, with LMN, they lock you into LMN Pay. That requires you to use that payment vehicle. That's where they're going to make their money. That's where they're going to get the extra fees. And there's pros and cons to that. There's pros in that you should have better integration with the CRM. I don't usually see great strides in innovation when it comes to having Clearant or LMN Pay, but there's definitely capability for that. The cons are that you have lack of competition. They can charge whatever they want. And honestly, that's usually where they're making their money. That's just the truth of it. So they're less inclined to think about the CRM as much as just optimizing for the profitability of the payment processing. All right, the ideal user in my mind for LMN is a company that's doing above $750,000, $750,000. If you're doing above that and you're really focused on design build, that's really what I would be focusing on is LMN. If you're doing projects that are above $100,000 per, so $150,000, $200,000, $300,000 projects, LMN, great option because there is a massive amount of project management that is required for those size of jobs, and handling materials and job costings and having what's called a Gantt graph, which allows you to be able to track over the course of time what certain parts of the job are being done. All very useful when it comes to project management and necessary for above $750,000 in annual revenue, focusing on design build, and where your projects are exceeding $100,000 in revenue per project. All right, so now let's go ahead and move down to Copilot. This is the one that I am biased on, so I'll be honest right up from the get, but I wanted to be open and transparent about why I think we need to start a CRM because of the holes that we've talked about in these other software systems. And I'm gonna tell you, we're not for everyone. Let me explain. So first and foremost, let's go over the pros. So pros, analytics in the KPI cockpit. So analyzing all the key performance indicators of your business, from close ratio to time to close to just so many different things about your service area and which customers you should increase prices on and which customers you should cut because they're too far away from your radius. These are the type of things that we really dig into. We use AI, artificial intelligence, to figure out what customers you should be cutting, what services you should be cutting. There's so many different aspects of your business. How long it takes you to get the estimate done, how long it takes you to get the estimate sent to the customer. These are things we track, we analyze for you, and on our what we call a cockpit, the Copilot, we have this cockpit where you can see this data over time, and then we analyze that data and then tell you what you should be doing in your business. That's what the AI really comes in, and that's going to be the driving force over the next couple of years as we start to innovate, is really leaning on AI more and more. What we call 3D, data-driven decisions. And so a 3D notification will pop up and say, hey, based upon these 3 data points, we believe you're gonna need to hire someone in 6 weeks. Based upon these 3 data points, these are the individuals on your team, the employees that should be cut, or they should be on a performance improvement plan because they're your lowest performers. All of that can be done using AI, and that's gonna be the thing we're focusing on over the next year or two. But even as I speak, the KPI cockpit analyzing the data has already begun. In my opinion, the leadership at Copilot is something that I can stand behind. Obviously, that's me, so I'm completely biased. But I do believe that my experience in the industry, having over 100 plus locations around North America, being very in tune with other landscaping professionals, home service industry experts, having a full pulse on, we have home service web design, we have home service CPA. I know so many different elements of the business in the home service industry. I fundamentally understand what we as contractors need. And I'll stand behind that every single day of the week. And I truly believe that the majority of other software companies are led by tech people instead of contractors that know what we need, what features we need, and things that are actual pain points for us in our business. And so the leadership, myself, and then Patrick Cash is the CTO, Chief Technical Officer here at Copilot. He also has been in the landscaping industry for almost 14, 15 years and developed software inside of it for many, many years. That's a massive pro in my mind. We also have what we call office hours. So every 2 weeks, you can literally talk to me on a Zoom call with other users. It's only for users of Copilot, and I don't see anyone else having that kind of access directly to the top at the CEO level. And our goal is to make this for the users, make it the best product for them, and be very open and transparent about what features we're adding, what the roadmap is, and how you can adjust your business to make sure it's optimized for the roadmap that is ahead. Most of these other companies, they're not doing that. It is features will pop up, things will disappear, things will change, things will have glitches, and you don't know what's going on. The communication at Copilot is what we're trying to really improve on in comparison to everybody else. We're not VC, venture capital backed. We're not trying to go public. We're not trying to sharpen the pencil and cut support and optimize for profit. We are focused on building the best product, and I am in this for the long term and the long haul, as well as Patrick. And so we don't have ulterior motives. We don't have a board behind us telling us what we can and cannot do. Our hands are not tied about what features we can add or how much we spend on research and development. We are 100% focused on the users. I cannot say that about any other software because they are venture capital backed, which means there's investors behind them expecting a return on capital. There's someone wanting to exit the company and sell shares. There's a lot of things going on that have nothing to do with creating a better product for the users, and that's what we're focused on. We're not part of any sort of conglomerate or anything like that. Our focus is really having a modern, simple UI that's easy to navigate, and really over the next year, really trying to develop a really top-tier support system, both from the chat support, but then also having where you can book a Zoom call and actually interact with a support person via video and share your screen, something we want to add as well. We're trying to be, like I said, very open about our roadmap and what we're trying to work on. In my opinion, what we're really trying to go for is taking the pros of Jobber, which is the clean, simple user interface, and the design and the ease of being able to get up and running, and then marrying that with some of the features of Element and Service Autopilot over the next 12 months to really allow for the enterprise level user software user to really dig in to some of those more complicated features. Now, let's talk about some of the cons, because there are cons with Copilot. Number 1, currently does not have price matrices or job costing. Those are coming in 2023. Towards the end of 2023, those should be integrated. So if you're using very complicated job costing or matrices for pricing, we currently do not have that. Our plan is to have that by the end of 2023 for those more enterprise level users. As well as another massive con to Copilot is that we are brand new. We do not have a track record. Everything I'm telling you, if you're watching this in February of 2023, is completely hearsay based upon what I'm saying. You don't have a lot of users that can say, yeah, I've been there for 5 years, 10 years. Definitely a con of Copilot, it is new. That being said, when we started last year with developing Copilot, we used the code base of lawnprosoftware.com, which was the old company that Patrick still owns to this day, and he makes that for people that are just getting started with lawn, kind of similar to Yardbook, but a little bit more premium above that. That's no longer it's completely separate than Copilot, but he has 14 years of experience building that code base, and that's what we use as a foundation to build on top of for Copilot. And our goal is to build a more enterprise level user experience for larger companies on top of that code base, as well as add AI-driven analytics and decision-making processes using Copilot. So just keep in mind, although we are new and we don't have a lot of experience in terms of people being able to say, yeah, I've been with them for 5 or 10 years, the code base has been around for 14 years, been being developed, and we just try our absolute best. That's all I can promise, but there's absolutely a con, and that is we do not have thousands of users that you can talk to and get feedback on what their experience has been over the past 5, 10, 15 years. All right, pricing. We are at $249 per month and $15 per user, all right? So kind of in the middle, not as expensive as Service Autopilot and LMN, but probably a little bit more than Jobber, just depending on what features you add. We don't have any add-ons though, right? So even though that monthly amount might seem like a lot, the bottom line is we don't have like $50 additional if you do measuring properties from satellite, and $50 more if you do text messaging. We don't do a bunch of add-ons like that. There's no add-ons for the client portal, QuickBooks, there's not. At $249 per month, you're getting everything that Copilot has to offer, okay? Bulk emailing, SMS text, two-way, QuickBooks, like I mentioned, client portal, all that, there's not any extra add-ons, all right? Let's move on to payment processing. We also, similar to Jobber and I think Yardbook might actually use it as well, is we use Stripe. Stripe is one of the best payment processing companies that is available, and we charge what they charge us, which is 2.9%. And then in terms of ACH, we charge 0.8%, the lowest in the market, 0.8% with a cap at not $10, but $5. So again, don't get too hung up on this dollar amount per month that you're looking at all these softwares. The payment processing is what adds up very quickly. And you're spending thousands of dollars and usually 5, 10 times more on your payment processing than you are on your monthly fees. So we literally charge exactly what we're getting charged from Stripe. We charge you as a customer, because for now, my goal is not to focus on the payment side. Down the road, we do want to create our own bank, but that will only happen if we can make the user experience for both you and your customer somehow better than just using Stripe. But in terms of fees, we are not charging or tacking on any extra. We are focusing on the product and ensuring that that's where we are making our money, all right? Ideal customer for Copilot. It's everybody. No, it's not. There's some people I don't think you should really focus. I really don't think you should use Copilot, and I'm gonna explain why. So ideal user is someone that is wanting to scale up to past $500,000 in revenue in the next 2 years. So if you're just getting started, you could join Copilot, but not if you're gonna take 20 years to get to 200,000, all right? If you're gonna get to 500,000 or more in revenue in the next 2 years, I would recommend using Copilot if you're just getting started and you're growing quickly. And your plan is like, okay, I'm gonna do 200,000 this year and $500,000 next year and then 700,000 the year after that. If that's your trajectory of growth and you're gonna plan to do above 500,000 in the next couple of years, I would join Copilot today. All right. Now, if you're doing under $2 million in revenue, also a good time to join with Copilot. All right. I could potentially say even $1 million. All right. What I mean by that is because there's not job costing and because there's not price matrices, if you're a larger company, you might be using those features, and I just wait 1 more year. In 2024, you can join at that point and take consideration then. But if you're under $1 million, maybe $2 million, then we could potentially put you on board now. But if you're above $2 million in revenue, I'd just wait, because we need to add those job costing as well as price matrices. We do have really great automations, like 30 pre-built ones that I would dare to say that it'd be tough to build one that's outside of those. However, we are going to probably integrate with something like an Infusionsoft or Keep that you can do some very high level automations, but for now, we don't have those built into the software. In my opinion, Service Autopilot is the best at automations for those very enterprise level users that are having 70, 80 automations that are very detailed and very minute. If that's you and you love automations and you're so tagged into them and you have 50, 60, 70 of them doing very, very minuscule things inside the business, just wait. We are not set up for that. Give us another year before we're able to do that. So again, ideal user for Copilot is going to be someone who's planning to get above 500,000 in the next 2 years. So maybe you're doing 200,000 or 300,000. If you want to go above 500,000, go ahead and join. You do not need Copilot if you're only going to do $100,000 or $200,000 for the rest of your life. Okay. If your plan is to go bigger though and grow the company, I believe you can do that with Copilot. So right now, I'd be looking to join if you were under 2 million. I would probably more conservatively, they'll say under $1 million. Because when I start seeing companies at 1.5, 1.6, 1.7, they start using some of those enterprise level features we just don't have yet. And that's job costing, price matrices, and very intricate automations. All right. And if your project sizes are under 50,000, I would also join. We do not have some of the very high level job costing and project management tools that LMN has. We will be adding those in 2024. So give us a year and a half, maybe 2 years, to where we have some of those more enterprise level features for 80, 100, $200,000 projects that I feel LMN has crushed. So our goal is to cherry pick some of the best features across the board of these other softwares, and hopefully over the next 12 to 24 months from the time of recording. This is February 2023. So by the end of 2024, my goal is to be the best in all these areas, allow for the growth of a company to go well into $5, $10, $15 million annual revenue territory, and not have we have to switch 4 times going through these different softwares as they begin to grow, and allow for that project management, large projects managed to be done, but also allow for the very in-depth automations, job costing, the dispatch board, allowing someone that has millions of revenue as a Service Autopilot user that could potentially switch over then as well. All being tied back to a very simple interface that Jobber has, which is easy to use, the mobile app, the customer's experience, and ultimately creating a world-class support team over the next 12 to 24 months. So, should you join Copilot? That's hopefully can help you answer the question. I will say this, we are new. We are trying to figure things out. I will make mistakes. I'll try to be open and transparent with what those mistakes are, what we're doing to fix them, and have a clear line of communication directly with our users. And every single waking moment will be spent trying to make sure that the software is stable, that it's responsive, the user interface is good, and that we are developing a support team to help you fully utilize the software, because I truly believe that in 3, 4, 5 years down the road, when AI has become integrated so well with Copilot, it'll be leagues ahead of the competition. And so if you want to join us for that ride, I'd be very thankful for that. I appreciate you even considering it and thinking about joining Copilot. Just go to copilotcrm.com and check it out. There's a free version that you can get started with. Check it out for up to 50 customers, completely free. And I just want to say thank you. I'm Mike Andes, co-founder and CEO of Copilot, and we'll see you in the cockpit.